She was not human, and her blood made him immortal and hunted. Riker Maddox didn't believe in fate. He believed in malfunctioning reactors, late payments, and rust that somehow grew like mold. So when the airlock hissed open with a sound like a dying animal and spat him onto the abandoned docking ring of Station Virel 9, he figured it'd be the usual scavenging for parts, dodging collapsing beams, maybe looting a snack dispenser if it hadn't been stripped of soul and circuitry. What he did not expect was the girl bleeding to death in the shadows. She didn't move at first, just a shape slumped beside a shattered loading drone, her body twitching once every few seconds like it was trying to remember how to live. Her suit, or what was left of it, shimmered in the flickering light, a liquid black fabric laced with cracks that glowed faint blue as if something inside her was leaking starlight. Her ears, long and sharp, weren't human. Neither were her eyes. They snapped open as he approached, glowing faintly red like embers trying to reignite. He stopped cold. The air changed. She whispered a word he didn't understand, something soft and full of razor edges, and then she moved, not to run, not to plead, but to grab the jagged shard of metal next to her and thrust it at his throat. Riker stepped back, arms up. "Easy, I'm not with whoever you think I am." She blinked, her pupils flickering like static. Then her arm dropped, and her head hit the wall behind her with a dull thunk. "They're coming," she murmured. "I can smell them in the vents." What who's coming? But she was already slipping, her breath shallow. Blood or something like it oozed from her side. It wasn't red. It shimmered like oil on fire. Riker hesitated. Everything in his gut screamed to walk away. Just another derelict, another broken mystery best left unsolved. But her voice, there was something about it. Not just fear, not just pain, desperation. He dropped to one knee, tearing open his toolkit. Okay, you win, but you better not bite." "I already did," she breathed. "What?" She looked at him then, eyes glowing brighter. "Not you, them." Before Riker could ask what the hell that meant, the floor vibrated. Something was crawling through the ventilation system overhead. Not walking, crawling, scraping, clicking. His skin prickled. The girl know? The thing in the girl's skin grabbed his wrist, and her grip was ice and fire all at once. "If they see me," she said, voice trembling, "they'll flay the memory of me from your bones." Riker stared. Then came the sound, not footsteps, not boots, but the wet, rhythmic scrape of claws on steel, and a breathing sound that didn't come from lungs. He didn't think. He dragged her up, her weight surprisingly light, too light, and half carried, half dragged her into a busted maintenance shaft just as the lights overhead died. The corridor went completely black. Something passed by. Something tall, sniffing, holding his breath hurt. Holding still hurt worse. The creature paused, sniffed again, then whispered a name into the dark. Not her name, his. When the danger passed, when the air no longer trembled, when his heart stopped trying to claw out of his chest, Riker turned to the half-conscious woman and asked what the hell she had gotten him into. She opened her eyes and smiled. "You're already in it, Riker Maddox. You took my blood." He blinked. "I did." What her voice was barely audible, but it buried itself in his bones. "You're mine now." Riker stumbled back from her, hitting the wall of the maintenance shaft with a dull clang. His breath caught halfway between panic and disbelief. "What do you mean I took your blood? I didn't take anything. I just found you." The girl. No, the alien curled tighter into herself, teeth clenched as something behind her skin pulsed with faint light. Her breath came in shallow bursts, steam rising off her in the cold of the station's dead air. Then she reached up with trembling fingers and pressed them against the side of his neck. A sudden heat bloomed under his collarbone. Riker flinched and swatted her hand away. "Hey, what the hell?" But it was too late. He felt it now. Beneath his skin, a low humming throb, like something ancient had been coiled there sleeping, and now it was stretching awake. His veins tingled, his chest tightened, and just below the skin of his left shoulder something glowed, faint, blue, not natural, not his. He tore open his jacket. There it was. A sigil, circular, shifting faintly like a liquid tattoo, its center marked by a sharp symbol that seemed to flicker in and out of geometry. It wasn't just burned into him, it was alive. It pulsed with his heartbeat. "What the hell is this?" he whispered. "Turn." She didn't answer, not immediately. Her head lolled back against the wall as her strength faltered again. Then she spoke. "It's a binding. You helped me. I bled. The bond accepted you. I didn't ask for this, neither did I." A silence fell thick and strange. Riker's heart thundered in his ears. He was a mechanic, a scavenger, a nobody trying to avoid debt collectors and half-frozen corpses in deep space. Not a chosen one, not a cursed soul, not someone marked by alien blood. "I don't even know your name," he said, voice barely above a whisper. She looked at him, eyes glowing like twin eclipses. "Call me Vera." He nodded slowly, trying to process what was unraveling around him. "Okay, Vera. You said they were hunting you. Who are they?" She hesitated. Then she whispered two words that made his stomach drop. "The Oathborn." He blinked. "Never heard of them. You wouldn't have. They erase the past. They don't just kill people. They erase memories, names, bloodlines. When they find you, it's like you never were." Riker swallowed hard. "You mean they're after you because of that?" He pointed to the mark on his skin. "No," Vera said, voice sharper now. "They're after me because I'm the last of what they swore to destroy. And now that you're linked to me, they'll come for me too." Vera nodded. Her expression was strange, regretful, but not apologetic. "I didn't mean to drag you in," she said, "but the moment you touched me, the moment my blood hit yours." "Yeah," Riker muttered. "I got promoted from repairman to galactic fugitive in under 5 minutes. Living the dream." Suddenly, the ship shuddered. A deep boom echoed through the corridor. Riker's comm pinged with a warning. "External pressure breach. Proximity alert. 3 vessels, unmarked." Vera's eyes widened. "They're here." Already, Riker scrambled to his feet. "Can you walk?" She tried, fell, grunted, nodded again. He grabbed her arm and slung it over his shoulder. "Then we're running." They burst out of the shaft just as a section of the outer hull peeled open with a screech. Shapes emerged. Not entirely humanoid. Tall, armored, their movements didn't feel right. Too smooth, too quiet. One of them turned toward our Riker and smiled. No mouth, no face, but somehow it smiled. Riker didn't look back. He didn't need to. Whatever the hell was after them, whatever the Oathborn were, they weren't interested in conversation. They were here to erase. And now they were erasing him too. Riker slammed the cargo bay lock just as the outer hallway dissolved behind them in a hiss of melting metal. Something had sliced straight through the corridor wall like it was paper. The lights flickered violently overhead as the station's power grid struggled to compensate. Sirens that hadn't screamed in decades suddenly found their voice. Vera sagged against the inner wall of his ship, her breath rattling skin dimming like a dying ember. "I don't think they're here to negotiate," Riker gasped, stumbling toward the cockpit. "Call me crazy." Outside, shadows moved against the transparent blast glass, not running, gliding, like death in slow motion. As the engines wheezed to life, Riker heard them again, those footsteps that weren't really footsteps. Not mechanical, not human, like bone dragged across steel and time, a sound built to haunt. He dropped into the pilot seat, fingers flying over the cracked control panel. "Come on, girl," he muttered to the ship. "You've survived freezing, nebulae, illegal wormhole skips, and that time I let a smuggler pay in cheese. Don't die on me now," the ship sputtered, then coughed, then whoom. The core lit up, main drive online. "She's flying." Vera's voice came from behind him, hoarse but laced with disbelief. "She's pissed, but she's flying." He slammed the thrusters. The ship jolted, then peeled away from the station like a kicked wasp, sparks streaming behind them. Through the viewport, Riker saw one of the Oathborn step onto the airless docking ring and raise a hand. The entire docking platform rippled. Reality bent like glass under pressure. Riker screamed and punched the emergency warp. Stars smeared. A violent lurch threw everything sideways, gravity tearing at their bones as the ship clawed into slipstream space like a dying animal trying to dig its own grave. The silence that followed was brutal. No alarms, no echoes, just the low hum of the ship's internal systems stabilizing. Riker sat frozen in the seat, hands still on the throttle, breath shaking. Behind him, Vera finally spoke. "You weren't supposed to survive that." He turned eyes wide. "Excuse me, that warp jump. Your ship isn't rated for slipstream entry without a tri-phase buffer core. It should have disintegrated us." Riker looked around at the ship's dim interior, flickering screens, rattling hull, and a smell that could only be described as ionized mildew. "Yeah, well," he exhaled. "She likes me." Vera didn't laugh. She just stared at him, not like he was an idiot, not like he was lucky, but like he was wrong. "You're adapting," she said, "faster than anyone I've ever seen." "To what?" "The bond," she said, simply. "The blood. My blood." He opened his mouth to make a joke, something about growing fangs or glowing in the dark, but the words died on his lips, because now he could feel it. The thrum beneath his skin, not pain, not sickness, power, not his, not fully, and yet his heartbeat danced in sync with the pulse of the ship. The shadows didn't feel as deep anymore. The silence wasn't empty. It listened. "What's happening to me?" he asked quietly. Vera sat down across from him, her eyes hollow and unreadable. "You're becoming marked. You've been bound to a bloodline that predates memory, Riker. You're no longer just human. You're becoming something older, something they fear." He swallowed. "And the Oathborn. They're afraid of me now." She smiled for the first time, but it wasn't comforting. "They're not afraid of you, Riker. They're afraid of what you might become." And somewhere deep in the black between stars, the Oathborn ship that had followed them through the rift began to repair itself piece by piece, reassembling from dust and bone. A signal burst from its core, 3 words: "The mark lives." And across the galaxy, things that had slept for centuries began to wake. The stars outside had stopped moving. Riker knew they were still flying, or at least drifting, but the void had taken on a strange, glassy stillness, as if the universe had stopped to listen. The hum of the Rust Bucket's engines was too quiet now, like it was holding its breath. Or mourning. He stood in the corridor outside the cockpit, staring at his reflection in the dull alloy wall. His face looked the same, almost, but his eyes, they shimmered, just faintly, like heat over a desert road, like something was watching from behind his own gaze. He didn't like it. "You said I'm adapting," he called over his shoulder. "What exactly am I adapting into?" Vera didn't answer at first. She sat on a crate in the cargo hold, arms wrapped around her knees, cloaked in silence. When she finally looked up, there was no trace of irony or distance in her expression, just a calm, almost reverent stillness. "You've taken in part of me," she said, "more than just blood, a thread of memory, an echo of power. It's waking in you, testing the limits of your mind, your will. I didn't sign up for this." "You bled for me," she said quietly. "You chose." He clenched his fists. "No offense, but that sounds a lot like vampire logic. Save someone's life and now they're drafted into your ancient blood cult." Vera's eyes darkened. "We don't worship blood, we survive it. Our kind evolved to hold memory and fluid lineage encoded in every drop, and when it binds with a new host, it doesn't ask permission." Riker turned away, heartbeat pounding louder than the ship's hull. "Then what the hell was that dream I had?" he snapped. "I was standing in a city that didn't exist. Sky made of glass towers of bone. I heard voices, dozens chanting something I couldn't understand." Vera rose to her feet. You dreamed of Velisar, she whispered. What's that, a city long buried, the first throne of my people, before the fall, before we scattered across the stars, that memory. It's not yours. It came from me. Riker stared at her. So, we're sharing dreams now. It's beginning, she said. The bond is strengthening. Phase 2. He laughed once dry and bitter. Oh great, what's phase 3? Matching tattoos and synchronized bleeding. Vera didn't smile. Phase 3 is resonance collapse. Your body begins syncing with mine. Nerve by nerve, emotion by emotion. If we reach phase 4, you'll start hearing my thoughts. Riker froze. Then very slowly, he said, that sounds like something I should very much not do. You can't stop it, not anymore. He started pacing. Okay, then let's slow it down, break it. There's gotta be a way to undo this. Some anti-bond serum or a big red button that says unvampire me. There is a way, Vera said softly. Riker turned. Yeah, you die. The silence that followed was heavy, final, no sarcasm, no softening. He stared at her. For the first time he saw just how tired she looked. Not physically, existentially, like someone who had been hunted across centuries, across empires, and still hadn't found a place to rest. Why me, he asked, finally. I don't know, she admitted. But the blood chose you. It doesn't choose often, and never without reason. Before he could reply, the ship's comms cracked an unnatural static that screeched like teeth on glass. The main console lit up red. A symbol pulsed, not human, not alien, something older. Riker rushed to the cockpit. We're being scanned. Impossible, Vera said. We're outside the standard relay nets. Tell that to the creepy glyphs on my dashboard. A voice hissed through the comms, not spoken but felt. A whisper buried inside their skulls. Return the mark. Riker flinched. What the hell was that? Vera's face had gone pale. They found us. Who the first Riftborn? Lights across the ship flickered. Then, through the distortion of slipstream static, Riker saw them. Emerging from the black-like shapes torn from a nightmare. Tall, wrapped in bone-white armor that pulsed with faint internal fire. No faces, just smooth metal where eyes should be. And sigils carved across their chest plates like scars that had been earned. They're not alive in the way you understand, Vera whispered. Their memories given form, echoes of a forgotten order. The Riftborn ships spread into formation. One of them unfolded like a flower blooming backwards, revealing a figure inside standing still as stone. It wasn't speaking, it was waiting. For him. The whisper came again. The mark must return. Riker stepped back from the console, heart in freefall. He turned to Vera. You said I was changing, that I was adapting. Yes. He looked at his hands. They were shaking, but not from fear, from something worse, from recognition. I don't think they want to kill me, he said. I think they want to welcome me. Vera's voice cracked. Then we're out of time. The stars warped as Riker pushed the Rust Bucket's thrusters to their limits. Space twisted in ways it wasn't supposed to. The Riftborn were still behind them, silent, unblinking, and far too calm, as if they knew exactly how the chase would end. They're not following, Riker said, gripping the controls with white knuckles. Why aren't they following? They don't need to, Vera said, her voice hollow. They already marked you. Yeah, well, I'd like to unmark myself now, please. Vera didn't laugh. She wasn't even looking at him, Simon. Her eyes were fixed on the holomap in front of her, staring at a patch of space that was empty. Or at least it should have been. What is that? Riker asked. Vera zoomed in on the coordinates. It was a ghost, a flicker of signal and light and distortion. It didn't show up on star charts. It didn't even make sense to the ship's nav system. But it pulsed, like a heartbeat, like it was alive. That, she said slowly, is the Vesper Spire. Riker blinked. That's not a place. That's a myth. Most truths start that way, she said. Vera keyed in a sequence. Symbols bloomed across the display in curling silver. They weren't coordinates. They were permissions. Codes older than the Alliance, older than Vera. The ship bucked. Outside, the stars bent in on themselves, and then the Vesper spire appeared. It wasn't a station. It wasn't a ship. It was something in between, an obsidian spiral hovering in the dark lattice with ancient glass and flowing metal. It turned slowly, endlessly, like it was listening to a rhythm no one else could hear, and it radiated a presence Riker felt in his bones. "It's sentient," he whispered. Vera nodded, half alive, half archive. "It was built by the Saren before even my time. A refuge for exiles, for those like us." "Wait," Riker said. "Us?" "You've been here before, no," Vera said, "but my blood remembers." The ship drifted into docking alignment without a signal. The airlock unlatched like a sigh, and the light's soft violet humming flickered to life before they stepped inside. It knew them, and it was waiting. Inside the spire, the corridors curved like they'd been grown instead of built. No signs, no guides, just a low musical vibration in the floor and walls tugging them forward. Riker walked beside Vera, his pulse syncing with the strange hum. His hand brushed the wall. It responded. A ripple of warmth pulsed under his fingers, and suddenly he remembered something that had never happened. A throne of black stone, a woman with silver eyes, a promise whispered in a language that bled light. He jerked his hand back. "That wasn't yours," he said. "That wasn't your memory." "No," Vera said quietly. "It was yours." Riker stared at her. "That's not possible." "It is," said a third voice. They turned. Standing at the end of the corridor was a figure cloaked in woven starlight. Tall, androgynous skin like crystal glass filled with lightning veins. Their eyes were featureless pools of shifting white. "Welcome," they said, "to the place between blood and sky." "Who the hell are you?" Riker asked. The figure tilted its head. "I am the spire's custodian. I answer only to the blood. And you are waking." "I didn't ask for this," Riker snapped. "I didn't want any of it." "Wanting is irrelevant," the custodian replied. "The bond is beyond will, beyond consent. It is purpose made manifest." Riker backed away. "You're all insane." But Vera didn't move. Her gaze was fixed on the figure, her face unreadable. "Is it true?" she asked. "Is he a scion?" The custodian bowed. "He is the last." "What's a scion?" Riker demanded. The custodian stepped forward. "You are the carrier of a lineage buried by time. Your blood is not just infected, it is reconstructed. You are not changing into us. We are being reborn through you." Riker froze. Vera inhaled sharply. "I thought the blood was a relic," she whispered. "So a curse passed down." The custodian looked at her. It was a seed. Then they turned to Riker, and now it flowers. A tremor shook the spire. Lights blinked red. "They found us," Vera whispered. "Oh." Outside, the riftborn ships emerged from nothing, phasing into orbit like thoughts made solid. And this time, they weren't waiting. They were coming in. Riker turned to Vera. "I'm done running, so am I." Together, they turned toward the heart of the spire, where the blood remembered, and the storm waited. The lights inside the Vesper spire turned from violet to crimson, each pulse like a war drum beating through the air, syncing with Riker's pulse in ways that made his teeth ache. Outside, the riftborn ships moved like liquid shadows, silent and cruel, surrounding the spire as if it were prey. Riker had never been trained for this. He fixed engines, ran cargo, cursed at stubborn fuel regulators. But now, here he was standing in a structure older than empires, with a vampire-like fugitive beside him and alien blood singing in his veins. "I'm not ready for this," he whispered. "You were chosen," Vera said. Her voice didn't shake, but her hand tightened on his arm. "The spire wouldn't have let you in if you weren't." "Yeah, well, the spire clearly needs better judgment." A tremor ran through the floor. Panels peeled back from the walls like petals, revealing veins of raw energy and glass-like circuits alive with glyphs. The entire structure was waking up because of him. The custodian returned, drifting through the rising static like a ghost with purpose. They breach atmosphere. Their weapons are primed. The spire is defenseless unless the scion completes the bond. I don't know what that means, Riker snapped. I didn't study mystical vampire engineering. Okay. You don't need to understand, the custodian said calmly. You only need to surrender. To what? The custodian extended a long hand and gestured to a dais, rising from the floor, a flat surface etched with spirals pulsing with the same rhythm in Riker's chest. To yourself. Riker took a step back. This is crazy. This is cult-level crazy. Vera stepped in front of him. It's not. I've felt the bond growing stronger every time we ran, every time we fought, every time you bled and didn't break. Riker, there's something inside you that's been waiting. A deep groan echoed through the spire. The Riftborn were trying to break through. Riker could feel them, not hear them, feel them like claws against the back of his thoughts, cold and ancient and full of purpose. Okay, he said, breath shallow. Say I do this. Say I stand on that thing. What happens next? The custodian said you unlock the blood gate, and with it, the last defense left to your kind. Riker laughed once bitterly. My kind, I'm human. You were the custodian said. Now you're something else, and this spire, it only answers to what you've become. He looked to Vera. Her eyes glowed faintly, not with hunger, not with power, but with something almost like hope. And Riker hated her for it because hope meant risk, and he was so tired of bleeding for things he didn't understand. But then the hull screamed. The Riftborn had landed. He stepped onto the dais. The moment his boots touched the surface, the glyphs flared white-hot. Not red, not violet, white, like memory, like light before it's bent by shadow. Pain spiked through his spine like someone had set fire to his blood. He dropped to one knee, gasping. The dais pulled at him, not his body, but his mind. Threads of who he was unraveled in an instant. His first ship, his first kiss, the time he'd stolen a sandwich from a corporate freighter and got shot for it. All of it fed into the spire, and in return, it gave. Memories not his. Wars fought in silence across ruined moons. Ancient voices speaking through rivers of fire. Hands, dozens, hundreds reaching forward in unity, in desperation to create this place, to create him. The pain passed. He opened his eyes and the glyphs were no longer on the dais. They were burned into his skin. The spire lit up like a dying star. Far above the Riftborn paused. Their ships registered the change. Their senses recoiled. And then the spire spoke, not aloud. Through everything, through the rock, the sky, the Riftborn systems, the shadows that bound them. A pulse born of blood and bond spread from the dais like a command older than war. You shall not enter. The lead Riftborn vessel fired anyway. A beam of pure entropy hurtled toward the spire and hit nothing because space itself had bent away. Riker stood breathing hard. His arms glowed faintly alive with circuitry that danced across muscle and bone. What the hell did I just do? Vera stared at him in awe. You became part of it. The custodian bowed. You are no longer just a man, Riker Vane. You are the gate, the key, the last lock against the Riftborn's return. Another tremor rocked the structure, but this one came from inside the spire. Below them, deep in the heart of the spiraling machine, something shifted. Vera's face turned pale. You woke the core. Riker blinked. That's bad, right? No, she said. That's worse. Because the core wasn't a weapon, it was a consequence. And now that Riker had claimed his place, everything wanted a piece of him. The world hadn't stopped shaking since Riker activated the spire. Not physically, the structure stood resolute, rooted in the bones of the planet, but something deeper had shifted. Reality itself hummed with tension, as if the universe had inhaled and was waiting to exhale through war. Vera hadn't spoken in over 10 minutes. That alone terrified Riker more than any incoming fleet. She stood near the edge of the dais, her eyes closed, one hand pressed to her chest, where her pulse beat like a warning drum. The glyphs along her skin had changed too, no longer the sleek silver lines of her people's heritage, but something jagged, primitive, symbiotic. Vera Riker said softly, "Talk to me. Don't just do the cryptic silence thing." She opened her eyes, and for a split second, they weren't crimson. They were his eyes, human eyes, brown, shot through with silver. Then she blinked, and they were hers again. But the message was clear. The bond was deepening. "It's accelerating," she said, voice low. "I can feel you." Riker shifted uncomfortably. "You mean, like emotions, numb thoughts, echoes, your anger, your defiance, your doubt?" She stepped closer, expression unreadable. "And your fear." He looked away. "Yeah, that tracks." Down below the spire's central core pulsed in slow rotations of molten red. It wasn't fire, it was memory liquefied, thought given weight. Every few seconds, Riker felt something brush the inside of his skull like a voice trying to speak through water. "You said the core was a consequence," he said. "What does that mean?" Vera didn't answer immediately. When she did, her voice was tinged with guilt. It wasn't built as a weapon, it was built as a fail-safe, the last breath of a dying civilization. It records the bloodline of every bonded host across time. But if too many of those lines are extinguished? Riker's chest tightened. Then what? Then the core chooses a replacement lineage, forcefully. "And let me guess," Riker muttered. "I'm the idiot who just hit the on switch." Vera nodded. "You activated the protocol. Now the core is rewriting you, not just to fight, to inherit." Riker felt sick. He stumbled backward, gripping the edge of the dais. "I didn't ask for this, no one ever does," she said. "But you answered it. That matters." Before he could respond, the spire's walls pulsed again. A projection shimmered into existence above the dais, three-dimensional, impossibly detailed. It showed the system surrounding them. A new ship had entered the field, not a purifier vessel, not Riftborn, something else. "Is that?" Riker began. Vera was already moving. "That's a Council war cruiser. Council as in Galactic Government Council." She nodded. "And if they're here, it means they've traced the bond's activation." The hologram shifted. Smaller ships detached from the cruiser like insects swarming from a queen. Their trajectory was precise, direct. "They're coming for me," Riker realized. "They think I'm a threat." "You're not just a threat," Vera said. "You're a variable, and the Council doesn't tolerate unknowns." Outside, the Riftborn had vanished into the upper atmosphere, retreated, but not defeated, watching, waiting. The Council would not be so patient. "Can we run?" Riker asked. "No, not now. The Spire has claimed you. You can't leave its orbit while the transformation is incomplete." He let out a bitter laugh. "Fantastic. So I'm trapped in a cosmic lighthouse, and every ship in the sky thinks I'm a ticking bomb." "You're not a bomb," she said. "You're a key." "A key to what, Vera?" She hesitated, then quietly to the vault beyond. Riker's brow furrowed. "I thought that was a myth." "A fairy tale?" She stepped closer. "It's real, and it's not a vault. It's a prison, a place outside time where the Riftborn's ancestors were entombed during the last galactic war." The realization hit him like a gut punch. "You're telling me I'm holding the only thing that can unlock a jail full of nightmare gods?" "Not just unlock," she said. "Rewrite." The spire flared again. This time, Riker didn't resist the pull. He let the blood lead him into the memory. Suddenly, he stood on a battlefield, not his own, someone else's. The sky was violet, the air electric with pain. Vera stood beside him, younger, unscarred, and around them bodies human, alien, Riftborn, all broken by something greater than war. Above it all loomed a creature made of light and hunger, a Riftborn prime, imprisoned but not dead, and now, in his blood, it stirred. Riker snapped back to reality. His hands shook. "It's in me." Vera nodded. "Yes, but so am I." Their eyes met, two bloodlines, two legacies crashing together at the edge of annihilation, and outside the spire, the first Council ship touched down. They had come to erase him, But Riker Vane wasn't a technician anymore. He was the Echo, and the blood was ready to speak. The first blast shook the southern wall. Dust rained from the high vaults. Red light flickered across the spire's interior, like the heartbeat of something ancient and disturbed. Riker's body snapped upright before his thoughts could catch up, an instinct not his own. The blood had learned how to move him now. Shields are down to 68% Vera, called fingers dancing across a projection interface. They're using disruptor-class munitions, not standard Council tech. Riker's eyes narrowed. Then who gave them the upgrade? Someone desperate to make sure the bond never completes. Another blast rocked the Foundation. From the balcony, they could see flashes of burn light arcing through the storm clouds. Council dropships landed in precision waves across the basin, their insignias glowing pale blue diplomatic livery masking a strike force. Riker turned to her. "Can we hold them? Not here, not in open battle." She drew a deep breath, then pressed a hand to his chest. "But the core can protect us if you finish the binding." His breath caught. "You mean complete the inheritance?" She nodded. "You'll stop being only Riker Vane. The core will write the rest. And what happens to the part that's me?" "It's not destroyed," she whispered. "It's shared." Outside the spire's outer gate exploded inward. Council enforcers, black armor, mirrored masks stormed the plaza, weapons glowing with anti-psionic charge. Their war cries were silent. "This wasn't a negotiation," Vera Riker said, voice trembling. "I don't want to die as a mistake." She met his gaze, unflinching. "Then die as a choice." They moved as one. Down into the core chamber, past obsidian statues of the first ones, past threads of memory encoded in floating crystal. The energy down there felt alive. It hummed inside Riker's skull, behind his ribs, curling in his fingertips. "You'll have to open the circle," Vera said. "Stand within the triad ring. Let it read you fully. And you, I'll anchor the feedback." He stepped into the ring. The moment he crossed the line, symbols ignited in the air, spinning, collapsing, reforming. His veins lit up in reply. Words not spoken flooded his mind. Designation accepted. Vane Riker, heir, catalyst, final echo. The chamber trembled. Above, the enemy was breaching the upper levels. You could feel the spire scream through its bones. "Vera, something's happening." Then the core struck. A beam of pure memory forged from millennia of bloodlines slammed into Riker's chest. He convulsed, floating midair. Not pain, not ecstasy. Something beyond both. He felt his atoms rewrite themselves, his thoughts rearranged like ancient music rediscovered. He remembered wars he had never fought, names he had never spoken, loves he had never lost. Faces, blood, fire, silence, and then Vera, not a memory, a constant. When the light faded, Riker dropped to his knees. He wasn't the same. He stood. His shadow burned silver against the wall. Footsteps echoed. Council enforcers had breached the chamber. The first raised a rifle, fired. The bolt stopped midair, crackling, hanging like glass. Riker stepped forward. "No fear." "Tell your command," he said, voice laced with something ancient and inhuman. "The echo stands." He raised his hand. A wave of force burst outward, not from rage, not from panic, but from inheritance. The spire sang, and the world outside listened. The battlefield outside the spire was chaos incarnate. Council gunships cut screaming arcs through the ash-laced sky, firing precision blasts that cratered the mountain slope like some god had taken up chiseling. The spire's defensive turrets returned fire, but half had already gone silent, fried by saboteurs, or simply too ancient to keep up. Riker stepped through the shattered threshold cloak, snapping behind him. His eyes glowed with lines of silver memory. The core's sigils burned into his skin like living armor. Soldiers who saw him hesitated. He was no longer just a man. He was inheritance walking. Vera moved beside him, blades humming at her hips. Her voice was calm, but every word was a thunderclap. They're preparing to deploy nullbinders, weapons built to sever blood-bonded conduits. They'll try to unmake the core, Riker said. She nodded once. And you with it. They moved fast, down the spiraling stairs that coiled like a double helix through the spire's outer shell. Beneath them, the cliffside had ruptured. Council forces swarmed the lower terrace. Drones buzzed like insects, scanning for psionic signatures. Riker raised a hand. Memory flowed outward in a burst of pressure. The air shimmered. The drones froze mid-flight, their code overridden by something older than silicon. Then, without a sound, they dropped like dead crows. Vera stared. "You're learning too fast." "I don't think it's learning," Riker said quietly. "I think the core's remembering through me." They reached the outer balcony, wind roaring so loud it could tear thought apart. Below, a council dreadnought was docking against the cliff, disgorging troops in waves. "They'll breach the archives in under 5 minutes, Vera warned. Riker looked to the horizon, and then he felt it. Not through eyes or sound, but through blood. The archives were awakening, a pulse, a presence, faint but rising like a sleeping colossus turning in its dream. Vera felt it too. The core's not the only thing that remembers. No, Riker said, breath-catching, the mountain does, because buried beneath the spire wasn't just stone. It was memory solidified, an ancient cache of thought sealed by the first bonded, a failsafe, a weapon. They'll try to corrupt it, Vera said, feed it false memory, turn it against us. Then we remind it, Riker said, stepping to the edge of the balcony, who we are. He knelt, pressed his palm to the stone, closed his eyes, and called. It wasn't a word or a command. It was an offering, a surge of everything he had become, his fears, his defiance, his humanity, and the alien legacy fused in his veins. The mountain answered. A tremor shook the world, not seismic, but mnemonic. Dust rose in spirals. Glyphs sparked into the open air, swirling. Ancient mechanisms beneath the rock groaned awake. The soldiers froze mid-charge. A memory burst outward, not from the past, but from the future. A possible world where Riker stood in victory. A bridge between species, an end to the blood wars. The memory hit the troops like a flood of light. Some dropped their weapons, others screamed. A few turned on their own commanders, lost in visions not their own. "What did you do?" Vera asked, stunned. "I showed them a better ending," Riker said. Above them, the Council dreadnought fired. A burning lance of antimatter. Vera shouted, but the mountain remembered. Stone uncurled. Roots of black memory wove upward, forming a barrier pulsing with the voice of 1,000 ancestors. The blast struck the wall and died. Riker stood the wind, lifting strands of his hair, eyes blazing. "They won't stop," he said. No, Vera agreed. "But now they know we remember too. And memory once awakened fights back." The stars above Velmyrus burned silent and cold. Far below the spire was aflame. Smoke coiled from the shattered terraces like black ribbons unraveling into space. The Council's dreadnought hung broken in low orbit, its hull fractured where ancient defense systems awakened by Riker's blood had torn through its shielding like paper. But this was not victory. Not yet. Inside the mountain, deeper than even the vaults of the bonded archives, Riker and Vera stood before the final gate. Behind it, the heart chamber. And inside that chamber pulsed the original core, a living lattice of thought forged before species had names, before memory had language. The last untouched shard of unity that the Council had sought to suppress, rewrite control. It was awake now because Riker had remembered, and because he had been remembered. Vera's voice trembled not from fear, but from awe. "We shouldn't be here. Not even the first bonded dared enter the heart." Riker didn't speak. His hand hovered just above the gate, its surface pulsing with sigils that responded to his heartbeat. One final breath. He placed his palm against it. The mountain sighed, the stone folded away like mist touched by sunlight. And then silence. The chamber wasn't lit, not exactly. It glowed, every surface suffused with a soft humming light that seemed to exist both outside and inside the mind. Symbols spiraled lazily across the air, weaving in and out of thought. Time bent. Memory swam. In the center of it all stood the core, not a machine, not a crystal, but a form half-thought, half-shaped, mirroring Riker's own outline like a reflection made of potential. He stepped forward, and it spoke not in sound, but in truth. You carry contradiction, flesh and echo, wound and salve. Riker's throat tightened. I didn't ask for this. You were chosen because you didn't. The core pulsed once, and then the chamber exploded with light memories washing over him like oceans. Wars, treaties, songs sung in alien tongues that had no translation. The first joining, the first betrayal, the long forgetting, and then his own memories, a broken cargo ship, the glint of alien blood, the terrified smile of a girl he saved once without knowing her name. Vera standing in a corridor with a blade daring the universe to strike her first. The pain of exile, the choice to help, and now this. The core asked, "Will you bear it?" Riker fell to his knees. "I'm not ready," he whispered. "I'm scared. Then you are worthy." The light turned inside out, and something passed from the core into him. Not power, not memory, but a connection so vast it could only be described as belonging. His skin flared with markings old and sacred, his heartbeat synchronized with something far older than species. Vera reached out to steady him, but her hand passed through the light. He wasn't just human anymore. He was bonded, a bridge, a key, and through him the last resistance in the galaxy would have a voice. The core dimmed. Its final echo whispered only one thing: speak. Riker rose, slowly, surely. Outside, thousands waited, soldiers, exiles, even purifiers who had stopped fighting after glimpsing the future he had projected. All of them watched the spire's summit, where the wind now carried a new signal. Riker stepped into the open, the markings still glowing across his arms. He raised his voice, not loud, but felt. This war ends, not because we defeated you, not because we surrendered, but because the memory of what we could be refuses to die. No applause, just stillness. And then one by one, people dropped their weapons. The mountain at last was quiet. Vera stood beside him. "You did it," she said, barely a whisper. He turned to her. "No, we did." Months later, aboard a rebuilt Alliance vessel sailing past the moons of Theron, Riker stood at a viewing window as the stars drifted by. He still had dreams, some his, some not. Sometimes they whispered, sometimes they screamed. But through them all, Vera's presence anchored him. They were not lovers, not exactly. Not saviors either. They were something older. Two echoes once separate, now one. Together, they remembered, so the galaxy would never forget. If you find this story touching something in your heart, don't forget to subscribe to our channel to support us to have more motivation to create more unique, touching, and inspiring content like this. We have many great stories waiting for you ahead.